Rocknard. I'm your host, Jacob Williams. Today I'm looking at Labyrinth, The Awakening, the expansion for Labyrinth, the War on Terror. Wanted to shoot this video this morning because I've been playing this solo for the first time, and it's really interesting. So I wanted to put some thoughts on a video for you guys. What is this video? Is it a review? Is it a playthrough? I'm not really sure. I'm going to call this a first look slash turn analysis, I think is what I'm going to call this video. So let's talk about a first look, maybe even call this a mini review. If any of you guys have Labyrinth and you're unsure whether you want the expansion or not, definitely pick up the expansion. I think it's really good so far. And to be honest, I had low hopes for this. And I don't want to go into the reasons why, because I don't want to burn any bridges, especially in the GMT community. But let's just say that I've had some experience with another GMT expansion that left a really sour taste in my mouth, and I just didn't know if GMT was a company that did expansions very well. But at least with this, I can't speak to any other expansions. This is absolutely brilliant, and I think that it's definitely worth picking up. I don't know if I'm going to go into every single new thing. Let me just hit some of the highlights real quick, and then I want to go into my current turn analysis, and it kind of goes into the review, or it kind of goes along with the review type thing. First of all, you'll notice that they've added 2 countries, and these are just punch outs that you lay down on your existing board. I don't know if you guys could tell from my Cuba Libre videos, but I play most of my games with a sheet of plexiglass on it. And now I usually do this because my GMT boards don't lay flat. And I know you can kind of bend them backwards along the folds, and then that really helps. But I tore a Twilight Struggle board ever so slightly doing that one time, and it's gotten me nervous, and so I don't like to do that. So when possible, I like to just put this heavy thing of plexiglass on there to lay it out. Also, I feel like it gives it a little grip, and it's just a little bit easier to work with than the regular game board. Also, I apologize if there's any weird shadows. So I'm recording in my my war room, I guess. I don't know what people call their gaming space. I'm down in my basement, and my wife usually works on that side of the table when she is painting and stuff like that. So a lot of times in the evening we're down here together, and so she can't really paint, while I'm sitting over there. There's not enough space for 2 of us, so I'm on I was filming Cuba Libre videos from over there, but now I'm on this side of the table, and then there's my podcasting equipment. Stay tuned for another video on that. But anyway, okay, so I apologize for any weird shadows or anything like that. I'm filming from a different angle than what I did the Cuba Libre videos. Okay, so you've got these 2 new countries, and they really tell you to put them like right here in these boxes. But when I play solo, at least initially, I had a lot of trouble only playing 1 card for the jihadists and things like that. So what I found works great is, I put the jihadist hand right here, and then I can flip a card here and then flip a card there. So that way I can naturally keep track of how many events they've played, because to be honest, I use this as like a save point or whatever. So last time I played this, the jihadists took their turn, and so now it's my card 1. So I kind of use that as a save point. when I'm doing this solo and just going through real fast, it's really hard to always do the accounting for that. So I use these boxes to help me. So, if the jihadists had taken their turn, that's kind of what it would look like. They played their second card and I know they're done. Then I can move on. So I don't put the new countries there. Um, I incorrectly thought at the time that Algeria and Libya typically don't have a lot going on, so I thought putting Mali there was good because that's generally close to where it is on the map. Nigeria is really more over here, but I kind of put it over here because it's adjacent to Mali, Sudan, and Kenya, Tanzania. So I just felt like it was a better place to naturally see where it's adjacent to. I really think someone on BGG who's really good with Photoshop should make some sort of picture that will show these connection lines and then maybe have a box for Mali and Nigeria. Now that's difficult because Nigeria can be a Muslim country or it can be a non-Muslim country, or maybe if it just had the lines and then the boxes for you to place those, that would be pretty good. But whatever. So you got two new countries to deal with, and it's interesting that Nigeria is two-sided. So in real life, Nigeria is almost 50-50 split between Christian and Muslims. So that's kind of what they're trying to represent here, and certain events will cause this to flip. Mali is just strictly Muslim, so no double-sided. And speaking of double-sided, Iran is now a double-sided country, so it's a special case, and then it can become a standard Shia mix country that's an oil exporter. And also, what's interesting is that in the note or in the rules it talks about how the Russian nuclear weapons and WMDs were more secure than an analyst initially thought. So modeling more current realities, the three WMDs that went into the loose nuke, HEU, and Kazakh strain box, they're now split between the Syria box and the Iran box, or countries of Syria and Iran. Syria to simulate the chemical weapons that Assad has, and Iran, I guess, because they were working on their nuclear program up until the treaty with them that the Obama administration worked out. And let me take this opportunity to say that what really excites me about this event was that I really started following politics in the '08 election, and I'm a politics junkie. I listen to, 2 to 4 hours worth of political commentary every day. And so it's really interesting seeing all these cards and events that, I remember watching on TV. And even though, obviously I was alive during the Bush administration, I wasn't really into politics that much. So maybe I recognize a few faces here and there, but, a lot of the cards, don't have much meaning to me. So it's really cool that they've brought this up from the Bush administration to the Obama administration. All right, what are some of the other new things? Well, you have these things called awakening markers and reaction markers. And these are another way that countries can have their alignments changed as well as their governance changed. And these are really cool because they help you with war of ideas and jihad without having to roll dice, which I think is really interesting. It's more of a way to do this through playing of event cards. We also have these civil war markers. Countries can be plunged into civil war. and it has more uses for your troops and your cells, and they're doing more military type stuff instead of the military aspect of the game being abstracted with disrupt and jihad and stuff like that. These little blue cylinders here, they're what you call militia forces. So these would be troops that either pick up some weapons and start fighting on their own, or they're trained by U.S. advisors. That's sort of what they're representing. They're representing the pro-democracy movements in these countries. So that's the majority of the new stuff, and then obviously the cards are new. What else is there to say about some of this new stuff? I don't want to go too much into it. There's a new end of turn sequence, and then there's a polarization step, and then there's an off-map box. These are just kind of flares, though. I don't know if I don't want to go too much into this. I don't really want to explain any of the rules. Like I said, this is just a first look to see, what's going on here. So let me kind of go into a turn / game state analysis. So it's my turn against the bot. Oh, and that's another great thing I do need to mention. This expansion really increases the solo playability, because now there's a US bot and an improved jihadist bot. So now you can play as the jihadist against the US if you're tired of playing the solo with the US. So yeah, it's really interesting that they were able to come out with that bot and not put it like in a C3I magazine or something like that. Okay, so like I said, it's my turn, my first card, or it's not my first turn, it's my turn and on my first card. And I just kind of want to look at the state of play here. So I'm doing pretty well, all things considered. I am soft and the world is soft, which is interesting because in this scenario, I'm playing the Arab Spring scenario where you stage the deck such that things kind of happen more in their actual chronological order. And this is what they call the tournament scenario, even though I've never heard of a Labyrinth tournament. But who knows, maybe they'll start happening. So I'm doing pretty good with the Global War on Terror penalty. I'm in the same position as the world. And I typically find in this game it's much easier to be soft than it is to be hard. But obviously when you're soft, you can't do operations like regime change. So there's drawbacks. Everything's situational. So I'm doing well on that. Prestige is doing okay. It's been in the toilet most of the game, but once I was able to get the +1 at the end of turns, things started to look up. And I was able to do a lot of disrupts, and a few cards came up that increased prestige. So that's looking good. Due to a really critical event, I was able to get the jihadists funding into tight status. So it looks like unless events come up, I don't have to worry about new cells hitting the board, and that's good because there's only 7 cells on the board to deal with. Man, things were looking tight a little bit earlier. I almost lost Pakistan to a major jihad roll, but luckily that they missed their because they had to have 2 successes and they only had 1, so that really helped me out. You'll notice that there's a lot of reaction markers in Afghanistan and Pakistan. These reaction markers represent the jihadists trying to stop the awakening. And it's really easy to think like they'll get 1 or 2 markers and you're just thinking, okay, that's not a big deal. It's only when they have 3 markers that you really have to worry. And that is a very dangerous mindset to get into. These markers creeped up really fast. It blew my mind how fast these were able to creep up. So now on this turn, I'm thinking, what do I have to do, to stop these? Because Pakistan is only 2 turns away from becoming jihadist rule without the jihadist player, Islamic rule without the jihadist player having to do anything. Because at the end of the turn, you look at this polarization, and if the total net of awakening versus reaction, if the absolute value of that is 3 or more, the marker moves alignment, and then once it can't move alignment anymore, it converts, its governance moves up, either to Islamic rule or moves down to good, if it's over an ally. So I'm really close to losing Pakistan. Now, as I was reading the rules, I was thinking that, oh wow, these countries are going to flip really quick, between good and Islamic rule. And they don't tend to flip as fast as you would think. So these markers are reassessed at the end of a turn, right? So after both players have exhausted their hand, and that happens a little bit slower and less frequent than you might think as you're armchair generaling through the rulebook. And what's interesting is that the awakening and reaction markers can change like really fast with the playing of one card. So Yemen, a few turns ago, actually had 3 awakening markers, and I was able to move it from neutral to ally, and so it was on its way to improving governance all on its own. And then a card was played by the jihadist player that placed a civil war marker into Yemen. And whenever you place a civil war marker, it instantly gets rid of all the awakening and reaction markers. Okay. And if you can ever get a country into either good or Islamic rule status, they all go away anyway. So these markers can change quickly. All right. But they also accumulate quickly. So it's very dynamic, and it's really interesting how they're able to model the Arab Spring with such a simple mechanism. So I'm going to be on this turn. I'm going to be watching out for Afghanistan and Pakistan. Afghanistan, I have a little more room because it's in ally status. So first, it has to take a few turns to get over to adversary. So I might be able to do more for that before anything would actually happen. Let's see what else. Maybe with some good War of Ideas rolls, I can help out in Pakistan. And that wouldn't be too difficult because I've got an adjacent country in good, so there's a +1. I've got an aid, which is +1, and an awakening, which is +1. But albeit there are 4 reaction markers. Each -1 or +1 counts as a marker, even though this one shit counts as 2 markers. So there's 4 reaction markers there. So if I were to roll a War of Ideas, I'd have a -1 because these reaction markers subtract 1 for your dice rolls in those countries, and your awakening markers add +1. So you net them out. So I might be able to deal with Pakistan. Yemen, I'm going to kind of leave alone because during the polarization phase, you inflict hits based on the number of militia or troops that you have there. And since they don't have any cells there, they're going to take with these things called hits. And whenever they can't remove a piece due to a hit, the governance changes based on that. So that's yet another way that this can go. I can improve governance without ever playing cards. All right. But kind of what I need to keep an eye on is Algeria. Algeria has 6 cells in it. and I have one troop. This is similar to like the NATO 2 troops that you get in the base game, so it counts as one troop, and I have a militia. So right now they have 4 more cells than I have troops, and this is also a training camp site. So if the jihadists get their funding up, then they have access to 3 additional cells that they can place in here. And then once they put a caliphate down, then they'll have access to 2 more. So jihadists can have up to 20 cells on the board in this expansion. So yeah, I need to worry about this. Maybe do a disrupt, or if somehow I can get Algeria into ally status, I can deploy to there. I'm not sure how much that's going to happen. But in my hand, I have this card, FMS, where I can place 3 militia in any ally country. Well, I guess that doesn't help either because Algeria is not an ally. I could do a war of ideas there. I guess that wouldn't be too bad. I could do a war of ideas, and I would just have no drawbacks. Though, let's see, the 3 op cards I have in my hand is Facebook and foreign fighters. And I definitely can't let foreign fighters go off because that would place 5 cells and remove 1 aid in any regime change or civil war. So that would drastically change my situation in Yemen. So I don't know about that. Yeah, my jihadist cards really suck. So ghost soldiers, remove half of all militia rounded up in any one civil war or regime change country. I would lose 2 militia in Yemen. Whew. So that's tough. I'm not sure what I'm going to do on this turn. Kind of what I'm thinking at the moment is I want to play Facebook to get 1 awakening marker in up to 3 countries that already have an awakening marker or an adjacent country. So putting 2 more awakening markers in Afghanistan and Pakistan will really help prevent that end of turn polarization that I was talking about. Oh, let me talk about Je suis Charlie real quick. I was reading the designer notes, and it was interesting that when that attack happened, Trevor Bender went home right away. I think that's the name of the person that did this. I should look at the rulebook and give him proper credit. Yeah, Trevor Bender. He went home and immediately drafted the card Paris attacks, and I think this one as well. And so these are the first cards to his knowledge in any war game that were written as the events were happening. So that was kind of interesting to read that in his design notes. What does that even do? Select the posture of 1 Schengen and 1 non-Schengen country. That would be helpful if I didn't already have my war on terror penalty where I needed it to be. The one thing I don't want to do is play Chuck Hagel. He'll set my posture to hard. Which I don't want to do. Well, maybe if Algeria turns for the worst, maybe I will want to do that. I'm not sure how I'm going to do it. And I'm not going to actually play the cards here. I'm just trying to give you my thoughts on what I'm thinking with the current situation. I think I'm going to play Facebook to increase my markers in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And then after that, I might try to... maybe I should wail on Iraq. I get a -1, but I guess that's canceled out with the adjacent good. Maybe the War of Ideas there would be good. Maybe it'd be worth it to fly some troops into Yemen to get more hits during the polarization phase. Not really sure. I feel like I'm at a critical turn here. I feel the course of the game is going to hinge on whatever happens here, and I have some bad jihadist events to deal with here. Oh, and I didn't even mention this one. Arab winter. Remove 1 awakening marker from up to 2 separate countries, and no more awakening reaction markers will be placed this turn. So I tried to play the bot as competently as possible. So so the way I would probably play this is I would put my Facebook markers down, and then unfortunately probably have to remove them with Arab Winter. I do get to have one card not go off this turn, but I'm thinking Arab Winter is a good choice to let go off as opposed to foreign fighters and ghost soldiers. Yeah, I might just have to let ghost soldiers go off and counteract it with FMS. Um, yeah, because I don't see any better way to mitigate those cards. And I'm a long way from winning because my good resources are only at 3. I got to get it up to 12. So, and this is just early on in the game, but I mean, I've already gone through half the deck. There's the discard and out of play pile, and this is a one deck scenario. So we'll see what happens. I don't know that there's any much else I want to go over with turn analysis or first look. This is an absolutely fantastic expansion. Definitely pick it up, and let me know if you have any questions or anything on this one. So with that, I'm Jacob Williams with the Frog Guy. Take care.